you know, starting at my Zenith at Dubai. What do you think? It's been remarkable. So, what do you think are the key, pivotal decision points that made you, reach this point of your career?
Good morning, everyone. I actually see a lot of familiar faces again from that crowd to here. So nice to see you back again. Thanks for the question, Meenakshi. I think if I think about the pivotal moment in my life, I think the first one was the very first time I decided to go abroad for my studies. So after my SSLC, I got a scholarship to study in Singapore. And this was 1995, so it was not the time where parents would let young girls just go off to foreign countries where I didn't know anybody in Singapore. So it was not a very easy decision at that time. It was not very common at that time to do this. But I do think it was probably the first most pivotal moment in my life where I gained the confidence to lead into discomfort. Go and do things which are difficult, which overcome your fears, because honestly, I was very, very scared, right? So I think that ability to kind of just push through it and do something new, even when not everybody agreed with the decisions and choices, even when I myself didn't know what will happen to me, right? So I think that was for me the first pivotal moment in my life, and I think that opened up the courage and confidence for me to make many such decisions in my life after. So, my journey is been many different countries, many different roles, many different things, and I have enjoyed that richness and diversity, I have to admit, but it also came with, every time you change something, there is fear. So I think that those were the pivotal moments. Every time there was fear, I say, go ahead, and those are the pivotal moments in my career.
I can definitely relate to, the fear of parents sending, because even now, even today, my in-laws are from Kozhikode, so I was born in Qatar, so I got a freedom when I came to India, but being at Calicut, there was so much of apprehension of me, working in consulting and traveling from one part of the country to the other part. So you during those days being getting into this, being a badminton player at Kozhikode, and especially sports, I can imagine the amount of the grit that you had to take up all these challenges. And over to you, Meenakshi, being at a firm, and you joined IBM as an application programmer, and now you are the senior leader heading AI, DevOps, and globally representing IBM. So what were your challenges and key milestones that you can share with the audience in this transition at IBM? I'm sure it was not easy.
No, actually, I'm sorry.
Hello. Thank you. So good afternoon. I know we are standing between you and lunch. So let me try to make my journey with IBM very interesting. By the way, it's like 25 plus years now as we speak, right? That is my experience, and IBM has been my only company, right? So when I joined as a programmer, I think I can relate quite a lot with Surya, right? So you go in and then start settling down. The moment I become comfortable, I feel I'm uncomfortable. I need to start looking at what next. So that has been something that has always been pushing me, right? So initially I was responsible for what I was doing, learning technology. By the way, I keep telling my son that I coded in an era where there was no Google, right? Yeah. So you have to know everything, otherwise you have to go through those big manuals to understand what is the syntax. Google was not there, and AI was not there. So that is how I started off my journey. And then from there I graduated into a stage where I'm not just responsible for my work, but I'm also responsible for a team. It's actually difficult, right? If it's in my hand, you can always code, finish and move on. But that also gave me quite a lot of skills. I have to build quite a lot of skills on how do I build teams, how do I start empathizing with people, how do I start understanding what is in it for them, how do I articulate it to the team. That actually made me from an individual contributor to a team leader to a project executive and whatnot. And I also figured out in my entire journey what really gave me the kick, or what really motivated me was my ability to help my team members to achieve their highest potential. Because as long as you are able to kind of build a path, motivate them, inspire them, and then take it to the next level, how can I use the technology to make changes to people's life? That's exactly what kind of made me to start thinking on. And I don't think you obviously start when you grow up in an organization, you will start figuring out how do I wade through the organizational structures and politics and whatnot. But what kept me always going was my ability to make difference to people's life, whether it is the people who work with me or my clients or the rest of the stakeholders that I operate on. That always kept me going. The challenges were more on how do I keep upgrading my skills, because what I coded 25 years back is not the same as what it is today, right? So how do you keep yourself updated? How do you keep your mindset open? How do you start looking for the challenges and embrace the challenge? These were the things that kept me going, and these were the big challenges where when you transition from a level to the next level, how do you adapt to the new kind of changes which you wouldn't have even thought about in your life, right? So those were the things that always kept me going. That's why it's still where I am.
Very true, Meenakshi. Even I believe it firmly. You have to get out of your comfort zone to grow in your career. I mean, there's no other shortcut to that. I'm sure even Surya's story definitely says that you need to keep upgrading yourselves wherever you feel that you're really comfortable, and you need to go up and take those challenges up. That's when new doors open, and that's how diverse your career will grow in future. Taking on to that, I mean, Surya, you have worked with tech giants like Microsoft, the premier consulting firms, I think, like McKinsey, where most of these, we have few students also right here. So it would be their dream firms, the dream to get into these firms, and you transitioned from such a premier corporate life to founding your own startup. What made you, and how did you even get into that decision making? Can you just share what went through your mind during those times?
Sure. I think there are many reasons, but I'll share two of them here. I think one is I had reached a stage in my career, or in my life really, where I wanted to shape every aspect of my life. So I had worked with big name companies for nearly 20 years, and I'm very grateful for the skills that I learned there, because you do get to really learn a lot from the best and the brightest from across the world, and that was very, very valuable for me. But I also wanted a lot more out of life. So I wanted to drive my business, but I also wanted to do creative work. So you might have seen that I'm a writer, so I wanted to dedicate time to creativity. But I also wanted to have a very sustainable life with my children. I have 2 young daughters, so I wanted to really be there for them during their teenage years. And my parents are getting older, and they didn't want to travel as much, and they're actually still in care of us. So I wanted to build for myself a life which had all these aspects in the proportions that I wanted it to be. So without really compromising on anything. So I suppose I wanted it all. And I thought, how do I build a life like that? And I think that's what led me to create a portfolio, of which my Zenith and my startup is one aspect of it. And then I built it really from the ground up in order to suit what are my tastes, my needs, and my skill sets. Right? And in Japanese there is this concept called ikigai. It's basically where you put together what you want to do, what you are good at, and what the world needs from you, and what the world is willing to pay for, and then you kind of find that sweet spot. So I think for me, stepping out of the corporate world into this and building my specific niche and area was kind of one of the main reasons. And the second reason was very specifically on my Zenith. So I'm a technologist. I've been working with AI actually even much before ChatGPT and so on. And I could see the potential of this technology to really change people's lives. And at the core of it, my Zenith has a mission to help people reach the peak of their potential. So Zenith means the peak. It's like the top of a mountain, right? So our mission is really how to help everybody reach the zenith of their potential, and through the use of technology. And for me, that was a big mission, right? I mean, as you know, I started from this city and I have traveled all over the world. I think I've been lucky, but I also know it is what such opportunities, how much difference that can make. And for me, it was kind of seeing how can we use the latest technologies to make such opportunity, make such coaching, make such personal impact accessible to a much wider population. And I think I'm at that stage in my life where I would also really like to do something which makes a difference to the world. So I think it was these two things that came together. And I said, I already have all these big name companies on my CV, I've got the skills, and now is the time to really step in and do something like this.
I mean, I'm totally, I'm actually coming back to my zenith to explore what it is more about. But I'm sure, the key aspect that you mentioned about, sort of the jargon seems to be work-life balance. Like you said, you wanted to take some time off, look at it, teenage, be there with your kids. I think that's the one critical point which every woman at one part of their career where they would have reached their the maximum potential. In their organization they might have reached maybe 5 levels up, but then obviously due to this reason they might have to take a break, or they may decide to stay on the same role for a few more years. So I think your story actually is an inspiration of where people can actually build on their skills and then shift to their passion and build on their skills to create a own become an entrepreneur and then be as flexible. But I'm sure it's not that easy. But yeah, we keep excelling in our skills and then use it for our benefit.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, it's not like I want to avoid saying take a slower path or anything, right? Because I think I actually work much harder than even I did at McKinsey or Microsoft when I do my own. I think the important thing is when it is tailored to what you want to do and your family needs and your flexibility, you can do a lot more than what a corporate structure allows.
Flexibility is very...
It's not so much about taking a step back, because I really don't want to say to women in tech, take a step back, don't do it. I mean, lean into the right things and go forward, because you can. So that's not the message. The message is you don't have to stick to those strict norms. Be daring enough to create your own narrative that fits your life the best way you want it to be.
Sure. And moving on to Meenakshi, you have specialized in AI, DevOps. So what do you think, the future of software development is, in this era of, operations, and how women who are working in tech right now, what are the key takeaways that you can give to them?
I think I have heard many of the speakers today morning in the stage one, including Surya, who talked about, I think the generative AI or AI is not here to replace human beings. I think that's very clear. So to me, if I have to really map a typical developer role, earlier, whatever is the proficiency of the language you used to know, you can call yourself, level 4, level 5, or level 10, or whatever we wanted to call it. To me, the role of a developer is going to change more from writing a code or assembling a code to an integrator, if you can call it that way, right? My ability to query a ChatGPT or any other Gen AI model for that way, it will easily bring me back to code, right? My ability to look into it, refine it, debug it is where I have to start adding more value as a developer. So this is just from a developer perspective, right? And that also gives me quite a lot of time, which otherwise I would have spent a lot writing a code, to looking at it from a systemic perspective or a systemic thinking, if I can call it that way, right? Where does this fit into the overall architecture of what I'm trying to do? Which today I may be just focusing on writing a piece of code that's given to me, to a level where I'm able to look at it from a holistic picture or a holistic perspective is something that we all have to learn, or we will be able to apply that skill in that kind of a scenario, right? So I may not be writing a piece of code, I might be looking at it more from a perspective, a holistic perspective, right? And then when you start really looking at what else the AI can do is, when you talk about all this, everybody getting onto the cloud, and we are moving even the mission critical workload, you can imagine an air traffic controller applications getting moved into the cloud. You actually wanted to work with zero downtime, right? You can't expect 2 flights landing on the same runway, right? You expect it to operate in highest resiliency possible. In that kind of a scenario, what will really happen is the ability to look into the data, the kind of data, the various monitoring that you do, the ability to kind of consolidate, analyze, and come back. We should be able to analyze much more data than what we typically used to analyze using the power of the eye, which otherwise was not possible, right? So the ability to drive data-driven decision making is going to be much more powerful, which was not possible before. The third one, we always talk about automation, everything to be automated, the mundane work to be automated, and then that will improve productivity. But what will also become more important is automate where it is important, or insights-driven automation, if I can call it that way. So my ability to look into the unknown unknowns, because it's very easy to look at what is known and then automate it. The ability to look into the unknown unknowns and then automate the things that use that insight to drive the automation is what will really be helpful, not just for the organization but also for everybody sitting here, because you are going to be doing much more than what you are typically doing today, right? So look at your role a little more elevated, using Gen AI. How can I become a more systemic perspective I can bring onto the table, not just writing code as a developer, insights which are driven by data, and then using that insights, how do I automate, is what I see as a big change happening.
Very rightly said, Meenakshi. So moving on to Surya again, you have traveled to 9 countries, gone through different cultures, environments. So how did this diversity and adaptability contribute to your success?
So I think the diversity and so it gives you a richness of experience, right? It gives you sort of the ability to go into any context and then start afresh and make something out of nothing. And I think it's a process that I enjoy. And I think this, everybody chooses their own path in life. But for me, it has been important to find these new sparks that give me a new lease of energy, right? And I think that has been very instrumental for me.
So when we say different, cultures and being part of, what is the time frame that you have to come back to, from your normal course and actually go to a different country? Then you come back and get to your normal state of routine and everything. What do you think is the?
I think normalcy is a bit overrated. You don't need to live in normalcy. You can live in constant chaos and enjoy it. Yeah.
So that is the mindset that you need to have. I mean, I think most of them have a fear of change. So I think you should always welcome change into your life and find the better prospects of it, rather than vying around the issues and challenges that it offers. So moving on to Meenakshi. So being 25 plus years, 16 plus years, 25 plus years in IBM, transitioning from multiple roles, how do you stay focused on your goals? What is that it makes you keep going in one organization? Because here nowadays, you see the generation Gen Z shifting firms maybe in every 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. So can you give some insights from that perspective?
Yeah, I always tell this, right? Obviously, I keep telling people that if you cut me, you won't see a red blood, you might find a blue blood, because I'm an IBM blue. One of the reasons is I got what I wanted. And it was not like I was in the same role or same position forever. And as I told you, the moment I start enjoying, I feel that I am comfortable, I immediately start looking at what next. Because that is a drive, I think, almost similar to what Surya was saying. I could kind of relate to many of the things that she talked about, right? Some of the ground rules or some of the strategies that has always helped me to keep going and continue to keep going for I don't know for how long. But that is something that I'm looking forward. One is I always have welcomed the change. Any change absolutely is welcome. You absolutely feel uncomfortable. You will see that butterfly in your stomach when you get into a new role. I don't even know. Many of the times my roles where I didn't even know the spelling of DevOps 7 years back. That is when I was given the role, right? I have to go and start figuring out what it is, right? So that way you do get your butterfly moments, but that I use it as a positive than looking at a stress, right? How do I go and learn? So I always have changed, embraced change. The second one is always about building strong relationships, because this is very important, especially when you talk about Gen Z. I don't look at my job as a job, I look at it as my career. It is a long marathon that I need to run. It's not a sprint. I need to look at it and pace it in such a way, like she said, how do I take those moment that I will be able to kind of be myself? Whether it is the break that I need to take care of some family, or it is something that I need to adjust the various ingredients to suit my requirement, I've always done it. So that way it is about that, building a strong relationship always helps. because that is something which will take you a long way to go, right? So that is another, and that also makes you to become a much more better human being, right? So that is the other one. And then the third one is, it's a lifelong learning. Learning is something that always, as I told you, when I started, I used to program in C and pointers of pointers and whatnot, to the latest one that you talk about. You have to keep learning, right? If my legs are not on the ground, I don't feel comfortable. Even today, I keep learning. I allot my time to ensure that I spend that 3-4 hours every week to learn what is happening new. How do I adapt to the new Gen AI? All of that I need to prepare myself, right? So keep learning is the third one. And then the fourth one is also about, take any problem that comes, right? It is in terms of not just embracing the challenge with the growth mindset. What is important is growth mindset, because my ability to look at the problem completely changes if I enter into the room with a growth mindset of what am I going to learn. So there are many mistakes and many failures that happens in anybody's career, but how are we looking at it? Can I learn from it and can I move forward, right? That is the way that I always look at on any challenges that were thrown at me, right? So these are the 4 or 5 things that I practiced. I thought might be useful to others, because that is what will help us to keep going wherever it takes us.
So taking forward from here first to Meenakshi, so you talked about maintaining relationships, continuous learning. I just want to bring in this well-being aspect. So how did you take care of that throughout this career? But I think that would be a question to many over here as well. And post that, I'll also ask Surya the same question.
Absolutely. In fact, one thing, if I just sit and think back my career, again pointing it back to what Surya talked about, finding the purpose and then relating it to your career actually gives you quite a lot of satisfaction, takes away the stress. Because if I have to think, and in fact I keep telling my friends, what really motivates me, what really keeps me going every day is, am I able to touch somebody's life positively? Am I able to help them to grow to their potential? Using technology, using whatever it is, right? So if I'm able to take that as my purpose, if I can call it that way, ability to relate it will actually keep you going. That is one. The other one is, we are important. Each one of us are important, right? So my ability to take care of my mental, emotional, physical, all of this well-being is number one priority. If I'm not fine, I will never be able to take care of my own kids or my family or anyone. So the time that you spend in taking care of yourself, especially the physical health, most of the women ignore it, right? Because we always put others ahead of us. But what is also important is, if I am not well, I can't take care of the rest of the people. So keeping yourself first doesn't mean that you're selfish. It is absolutely needed for you to become a much more better human. Because similarly, if I'm not emotionally all right, I'm going to be screaming at everyone, right? It is not needed. So what is the time that I'm going to be spending on my holistic development, which will actually make the life of everybody else around me better? That's what I truly believe in. So I don't miss my yoga in whichever part of the world I am in. I absolutely will do it, and I don't feel, even if there are 200 pressures at work, I don't feel guilty that I'm doing my yoga, because unless and until I do it, I don't feel good about it. So absolutely prioritize yourself. That is very, very important.
And I'll take away the word not feeling guilty. I think that's the key reason why women don't, keep themselves first, and they just feel the guilt that, okay, I've not done. Even if somebody's very committed to work, they will look at finish off my work first and then take care of myself, but then something else comes in and then their entire priorities are on a third person and not on ourselves. Surya.
On self-care, I think I'm going to leave one message, which is play sports. And maybe because I come from a background of sports, but I think what I see a lot in women, especially in Kerala and maybe broader India, is after some point you stop being physically active, and you think, if I go running, oh no, what will people think? I don't care, just go running, or pick up a sport, or pick up, be active, and not just a little bit of walking here and there. Really go and keep yourself active. And I say this partly because if you are in a high senior levels in a profession, you need physical energy. I have worked 100-hour weeks, been on planes every single day of my life. I can tell you, the most important thing is you need to be healthy enough to do this.